In the early days of tabletop role-playing games, the objective was brutally simple: survive. You were an adventurer, and your primary interactions with the world involved kicking down doors, avoiding lethal traps, and enduring waves of monsters until you ran out of health or ran out of luck. The standard adventures published in the late 1970s relied almost entirely on a math-heavy cycle of attrition. Players navigated hostile wilderness maps on grid paper only to descend into underground labyrinths engineered to drain their resources, one goblin at a time. But by the early 1980s, the community began to mature. People wanted to build collaborative stories rather than just run tactical combat simulations. The problem was that the official material sitting on store shelves was still largely built for slaughter. Then, in July 1983, a freelance designer and close associate of the game's creators named Lenard Lakofka published a module called The Assassin's Knot. It was 32 pages long, and it completely eliminated the dungeon. If a group of players walked into this town and tried to draw their swords to solve the conflict, they would fail the scenario. The adventure actively punished overt hostility. The Assassin's Knot demonstrated that a role-playing system could challenge a group of adults without a single underground corridor. It traded pure mathematics for narrative consequence. The story begins in the coastal town of Restonford, where the local ruler, Baron Grellus, is discovered strangled in his bedchamber. The door is locked from the inside, and there are no signs of a struggle. This diagram illustrates how Lakofka neutralizes the game's own magic system to protect the mystery. In a world where a cleric could normally cast a spell to ask a dead man who killed him, the author explicitly states that the Baron's corpse has been meticulously mutilated. This detail is a mechanical roadblock, rendering standard resurrection and divination spells useless. Instead of magic, investigators are left with exactly 3 physical items deliberately left at the otherwise pristine crime scene: a 50 gold piece red ruby, a golden lute string, and a distinct red leather button found clenched in the deceased Baron's hand. Players had to put down their dice and use actual deductive reasoning. They had to cross-reference eyewitness accounts from guards and travel to the neighboring town of Garrotten to identify the owners of the red ruby and the lute string. But if they dug deep enough, they'd realize all 3 owners were entirely innocent, having been framed by the real masterminds. By stripping away the easy, magical solutions, the adventure forced players to rely on their own investigative instincts. It demanded that they read alibis, interrogate witnesses, and connect physical evidence, offering a completely different type of challenge for the medium. The entire town of Garrotten functions as an urban sandbox. Instead of navigating a linear, room-by-room sequence of monsters, players are given free rein to wander the streets, visit taverns, and observe the local economy to identify the source of the red button. This network diagram shows how the module actively tracks the players. The town is populated with a highly responsive web of characters. If the investigators ask too many probing questions or fail to maintain a low profile, these seemingly unconnected townsfolk are secretly eavesdropping and reporting everything back to the hidden Assassin's Guild. The compartmentalization is remarkably authentic. A low-level assassin poses as a cleanup boy at the inn. A magical spy operates as a local barkeep. They communicate through dead drops, like leaving a bandana on a doorknob or sliding copper pieces under doors, feeding the party distractions or setting up street ambushes. And here we see the module's most significant departure from traditional design, an event-based timeline. This calendar tracks the in-game month of planting. Rather than having monsters wait in rooms until the players arrive, the plot operates on a ticking clock, starting with the Baron's murder on the 1st of the month. If the players waste time or get stuck, the villains continue executing their conspiracy. By the 8th day of the month, the assassins strike again, murdering the Baroness in her sleep and plunging the region further into chaos. Replacing static monsters waiting in rooms with a dynamic, time-sensitive ecosystem forced the game world to move at its own pace, independently of the players. When the module hit store shelves in 1983, the reaction was polarized. Players conditioned to expect high-octane combat felt frustrated by a game that required careful note-taking and dialogue, with some early magazine reviews dismissing the mystery as dull.
It also placed a heavy administrative burden on the dungeon master. Whoever ran the game had to memorize the shifting schedules, layered lies, and specific motives of dozens of characters, managing it all in real time without the aid of modern digital tools. But that intense realism came from genuine table experience. Lakofka didn't invent this plot in a vacuum. The entire murder investigation was derived from an unscripted player character death that occurred organically during his own weekly home campaign. He stress-tested the political fallout with his friends before ever putting it into print. Unfortunately, his time-shaping official material was cut short. Following corporate power struggles at the publishing company in the mid-1980s, Lakofka's next completed manuscript was shelved, sitting locked in a vault for 19 years before it finally saw the light of day. By successfully integrating a reactive timeline and a complex social web, Lakofka provided a template for the narrative-heavy adventure paths that would follow throughout the late 1980s. It remains a masterclass in transforming a map into a reactive storytelling engine.